Design as an activity is not new. Humans have been designing things ever since the first cavemen began to make the first tools. And even in the relatively short time since it was established as a profession, design has seen many paradigm shifts. One of the most recent of these is a move in how we perceive the role of a designer. Previously, the designer was seen as a mostly independent agent, using their creative genius to come up with new ideas. Now we've moved on to a view of the designer as a facilitator for end users, the people who ultimately make use of what is being designed. This movement, called user-centered design, emerged in the 1980s, at the same time as the field of human-computer interaction began to grow. In parallel, cognitive psychology research was providing a growing evidence base about the importance of design in helping people understand how to use products and systems. User-centered design, in its essence, is a framework of techniques in which the end user is placed at the center of the process and has an instrumental role in determining the final form that a design takes. Since design is largely about solving people's problems, it makes a lot of sense to involve users at all steps of the way. This takes many forms, one of which is user research. User research ranges from basic techniques like surveying and interviewing, through to more complex ones like ethnography and generative sessions. These techniques can be used upfront to inform us about our users' needs and wants, even before we start designing. But it doesn't end there. One of the central tenets of user-centered design is that we do not only involve the end users in the beginning of our process, but also the whole way throughout. For example, designers often produce prototypes to demonstrate their design ideas. These prototypes should not be used merely to demonstrate the ideas. They can also be tested with users and produce feedback that can be used to refine the design. We can also involve users at the end of the process, when we have our almost finished product, software or system. Sometimes we want to be sure that we've made the right choices. In this case, we perform usability testing, where the user is asked to carry out a number of tasks. The designer watches to see how successful they are in carrying out these tasks and how well the design supports them in reaching their goals. A really good example of a large company taking a user-centered design approach is Facebook, with their recent redesign of their like feature. For many years, the platform limited themselves to likes and comments as the only way of reacting to posts. But with the increasing number of mobile users wanting a way to react quickly to these posts, and the lack of options that the like button provided, the organisation conceded that a more nuanced approach was required. Thus, they embarked on the process of designing Facebook Reactions, 6 animated responses that were released to users in 2015. The team at Facebook undertook a great deal of research into the most common expressions people required, and how they could physically portray these as emojis. They started with a background study of their users, looking through posts from Facebook members to find out which stickers and one-word comments were being used the most often in reaction to posts. This helped them to identify common sentiments. They took the study further by also looking at how emojis were being used on other platforms, revealing, for example, that the hearts in the eyes emoji was the most popular one. At this point, they had to make some difficult decisions. While initial research had told them that up to 25 emojis would be required to convey the full spectrum of human emotions, they didn't have this much space, and they wanted to keep their user interface simple. So they carried out more studies with users to determine which emojis are used more often. For example, the yay celebratory emoji was originally included, but didn't make the cut, because this was used less often than others during the testing period. During the process, they came up with more than 12 different emoji panel designs to test. They carried out months of user testing in a handful of countries. These studies focused on the non-verbal cues encapsulated in the emojis and how different people interpreted these. One of the light bulb moments of this study was the decision to include animation in the emojis, because this provided much richer non-verbal cues. In order to be clear, the reaction needed to actually react. Understanding user behaviour is really crucial when we're designing platforms, choosing content, or making other strategic choices involving social media. In any social media community, you have 2 key user groups who can be approximately classified on the basis of their behaviour: the lurkers and the posters. Most of the active posts on social media are from a small group of people who form a vocal minority. These are the posters. The vast majority of people who access the platform are just viewing or reading the content. These are the lurkers, and may in some communities account for more than 90% of users. It's easy to overlook these people because they are not making active use of the features of a platform or community. But to ignore them is to ignore a large and important chunk of the users. Design can take into account passive lurking behaviour in a meaningful way. For example, by using the clicks and behaviours of lurkers to influence recommendation systems, or finding more gentle ways to involve them in dialogue. Emojis are a good example of providing a vehicle for low-effort responses. When a designer takes the time to understand users and involve them in the design process, this leads to a better result, and one that is more likely to be successful.